Let's dive in and see how we can use our child theme to make some modifications to our website. Through the next series of lectures, we will be looking at several different things that we can do to modify our child theme. Keep in mind that this is really flexible and depends on your project. I would encourage you to think about the laziness principle and try to make WordPress work for you rather than just creating a bunch of CSS that may not be necessary. With that being said, let's jump into our website. We'll be focusing primarily on our home page, and I've altered a couple of things just to strip out some of the formatting that was from our previous website. We'll be making some modifications so we can improve the layout and the look of this web page. I'll start at the top of the page, and the first thing I want to do is adjust the header. Clearly, my navigation is not displaying in the way that I would like it to, and in addition to having the company name, I would also like to display the logo. We could harness CSS, but this is going to create a lot of complexity, so we're going to do a lot of the work for this particular portion in WordPress and use the features of WordPress to be able to dial this in. I'm going to go to Appearance. And if we go to themes, you can see that my active theme is my child theme. I do have a customizer here, so I can click Customize. And at this point, the customizer is going to match the parent theme's customizer. But I will just go ahead and make my modifications here. So as I mentioned, I want to take care of this heading part right here. Currently, I'm on the home page, and if I try to edit this area, you can see that this area is locked by default. I can unlock it and edit it, but it will only affect the home page. So that's not what I want to do. I want this to be a global change that will filter to every page of my website. So I am going to go back to the navigator, and we are going to go into the navigation area. So I will click navigation, and this is my navigation. This navigational element looks quite a bit different than the navigation element that we looked at in the previous section of our course where we are using a different theme. So a lot of times the way that you make modifications is theme specific. What I want to do is I want to reorganize this and also eliminate some of these elements. I have some elements that are sub-pages of other areas, and then I have something called Home To, which is not actually an active page in my website. I don't want this to be part of the menu. It was just a page that was potentially used to try some features out. Using the 2025 theme, if we want to alter the navigation menu, we can grab these elements and we can reorder them. So if I try to reorder it, I'm going to get this little pop-up menu that lets me know that if I edit this, it allows me to add, delete, or reorder pages. It also lets me know once I start making these modifications, it's no longer going to automatically add pages. I'm fine with that. I'm going to click Edit. And now I can grab my home and drag it all the way up to the top if I want this to be the first item in my menu. I will not be using home though, so I'm going to click the three dots here, and we're just going to remove home. I will also go ahead and remove Home To, since that is not something I want as part of my navigation. We will start off with About Us, then I'm going to have my Design and Services be the next item of my menu. I do want to make some sub-menu categories under here, so I'm going to simply grab Residential, and we'll just drag this, and if you drag it to that menu item, you can see that it now made a drop-down menu. We'll also do the same with Commercial and Custom Events. The next item I'm going to have is going to be my portfolio, and then we'll have blog and contact. So you can see that I've restructured this, and now it's looking a little bit more like it was in the previous project that we were working on. Regarding the Terra Diem company name. I would like to use my logo, and then I want to have Terra Diem here. So again, if we go to actions, we can click edit, and this will allow me to edit the menu itself, but I'm not able to actually edit that other area. So we'll go back, and what we're going to do is we're going to click the back button again. And from here, what we're going to do is we are going to click on our patterns. And these are all patterns that I have available. These are patterns that are not all being used on my website. But if we come up here to the top, these are parts of my website that are being used. So I have this section called all template parts, and these are elements that are part of the template. These things are being placed into my site. So I have a couple different options here under header. I have 3 headers. So I have a vertical header, I have this header with large title, and then this header, which is the header that's currently being used. So I'm going to click this. And now that I've clicked this, I can go ahead and modify this. I am in the header template part, and I can go ahead and open up my document overview, and I can add elements. So what we will do here is we already have the site title. I'm going to select this. I'm going to go to styles, and I want to see if I can make this so it's not bold. I'm going to go to appearance, and we'll turn on font. And under appearance, let's just change this to regular. So we don't want that to be bold, we just want it to be regular. And then I'm going to click to the left of the text, and we're going to go ahead and insert an image. I will pick something from my media library. I'm going to go ahead and find my logo. That is my favicon. So let's see if we can find our SVG. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and use that. And as you can see, it placed the logo here. Now, I'll go back to the list view. I don't want the image to be here. I'm going to drag it so that it is in front of the site title. These elements are spread apart, and that's because right now we're using a row. And if we look at the row, we have space between items. So all of these things are in a row. I will select both the site title and the image. We're going to group these items together. If I go into the pop-up bar right here and I can choose group, this will group these items. By default, it's going to place these items on top of each other. I don't want them to be on top of each other, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to transform this to a row. And as you can see now, it's displaying a little bit more in the way that I want. We'll select the logo and we're going to increase the size. Instead of having the width and the height be auto, we'll go ahead and we'll set the width to 60 pixels and we'll just let the height be whatever it needs to be. So that looks a little bit better. I like the way that this is looking. I'm going to save this. And of course, this is going to be a global change. So when I go back out and I refresh, now we have a global change. And so now our menu looks a little bit different, and I'm liking this a lot better. Now, obviously, this has nothing to do with the child theme. We're just editing some of these options. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see about removing the home text right here. So let's go to our home page to do that. I will leave this area and go back to my dashboard. I'm going to go to Pages, All Pages. We'll find our home page and we'll click Edit. And as you can see, here's this home text right here. If we click right here, I can highlight this text and I can delete it. And we go to the front end and refresh, it does disappear, but it's still going to exist on all of our other pages. All we did was just remove this one instance of the home. Now, you can see when I removed the text home, this page now says no title, which is not a very great name. If I go back to the front end and we refresh, we don't see that text, but we definitely don't want to call this no title. So I'm going to edit this, and we're going to add our title of home and resave this. So instead of removing this from the actual pages, which is going to be confusing since none of my pages are going to have a name, we're going to use our child theme to have this not display. When you want to figure out what something is, you're going to need to use the developer tools. The developer tools are essential, and you will use them all the time when you're trying to figure out what something is called. I will go ahead and open my developer tools. All of the modern browsers have developer tools. I am currently in Chrome. If your developer tools look slightly different, it's probably because you're working in a different browser. And while the developer tools work in a similar fashion, there may be subtle differences. To access the developer tools, you're going to go to these three dots at the top of the browser. You are going to go to More Tools, and I know you can't see this, but there is a flyout menu that says Developer Tools. Another way that you can access the developer tools, which is definitely my favorite way, is to simply just right-click or control-click somewhere on your page and click Inspect, and then that will open your developer tools. The developer tools are going to show you the HTML that's being used on the page, and you can certainly open any of these little triangles, and it's going to show you the subcategories that are part of the DOM or the document tree. Down below, it's going to show you CSS about anything that you've selected. You can use this little icon right here to select an element on the page and inspect it. So I'm going to come right here and select this particular element, which is called Home. And you can see this is an H1, and it has a class of WP block post title. This is probably going to be the same on every page. So if I go to the About Us page, and once again, if I click on the same element, you can see that the text is different, but it says WP block post title. So this is the class that I need to use so that I can use my child theme and have this display as none. So I'm going to go ahead and just tell it to display as none. We'll jump into our child theme. And as you can see, I commented out the body of red. I didn't actually want that there. I was just using that previously. I can delete that at this point. I do like to go ahead and make comments in my child theme CSS so that I can remember what stuff is. And I'm going to go ahead and put the class name of WP-block-post title. I will go ahead and open my curly braces, and I'm simply going to use a display of none. If we save this, and if we go back to the front end portion of our website and click refresh, you can see how that has disappeared. And if we go to the home page, it's also gone there. So this is a much more efficient way for us to eliminate that element. You can go ahead and you can hover through these different areas and see if there's anything else you might want to modify. For instance, I have this main element, and you can see that this has a class. This particular element is using an inline style. So it's using a CSS variable that is setting this spacing. The orange is margin. If you see green in the developer tools, that is padding, and the blue is the text-based content. So what I'd like to do is get rid of this additional space right here. So again, I can check this. This has a class of WP block group. If I go to one of my other pages, because this is something I would want to do on all pages, this is the first class. There's actually multiple classes applied to this element, but I'm going to try using this WP block group. I will just simply double click and copy this. A lot of times the class names are kind of long, so if you copy them, it might make your life a little bit easier. I'll return to my editor, and I'm going to go ahead and use .wp block group, and we'll just add a margin of 0. Let's save this. We'll go back to the front end portion of the website and refresh, and you can see that that did not work. Here is our style. It actually is rendering, but this inline style is going to trump my external style. In order to make this work, we are going to need to override the inline style. That can be done by using the modifier of important, and I would caution you to not throw this on every single thing, but in some cases, especially when you're working with WordPress, you may need to use the important modifier. So now you can see everything changed a little bit, and if we look at the WP block group, the margin of 0 is being applied. That margin has now disappeared. It looks like there may be some spacing on this element too. This is the WP block group, and it looks like this is using some padding on it, which is setting some additional spacing there. So I might want to get rid of that as well. You can decide on what your needs are for your particular project and make choices based on that. It is worthwhile that you use the developer tools so that you can figure out what element is actually controlling that, and if indeed that is something that you want to do. You can see that my hero image got indented. I really only need to remove the margin on the top. If we go back to our rule right here and I write margin dash top and we set that to 0, if we come back, you'll see that now the hero image spans the entire width, but we've eliminated some of that additional space that we had. Now, some of these other elements, for instance, this element that we applied the margin top to, the WP block group, in addition to using that inline style with margin, it's also using some padding on the top. So if you wanted to remove that spacing as well, we could go ahead and just modify that as well. And I'm going to have to use my important modifier again because this is an inline style. We'll save that and we'll come back out to the browser and refresh. And now you can see that this hero image is much closer to the top of my page. And this is how I want this to look. As you can see, this is starting to come together in a way that is more beneficial for how I want the website to look. I do want to point out to you that when we made this modification, and this is something that you will commonly find, it fixed the area that I was focused on, but I don't like how my nav element is so tight to the top. I would like a little bit more space on the top. So if we go to our header, you can see that there is no padding or margin on the header. I'm going to open the header and I'm going to look at this next element, which is a div. And if you look at the class name, WP block group, it's the same as the name that we used down below. So if I get rid of this, you can see that that padding on the top, it looks like, was the space that was being generated. This is common when you're using the developer tools and trying to figure stuff out. There are a lot of class names that are being applied because this is how WordPress works. And sometimes some of the changes that you make may impact your site in a way that is not part of your vision. So we have a couple choices here. We could target the header and just add some padding back in on the header, or we could try to be a little bit more specific with our initial class right there. This is the element that we wanted, this WP block group, and this has other classes on it. Sometimes you can string together the other classes and use specificity. In this case, I probably would be more prone to putting the additional padding on the header. And in some situations, if you're not sure like what the values are, you can do this in the developer tools just to test it out. It's something that I do often. So with the header selected, if I click this plus sign right here, it's going to target this element. And we can come in here and we can just say padding top, and maybe we try 1 rem. I think that that looks much better. You know, you can obviously change this value. You could make it 2 rems if you want more spacing. Whatever you need to do to improve the layout of your website, you're in charge. So you can do what you want. I generally will go to a different page and I'll just check and make sure that that particular element has the same class name. So WP block template part has the same name. That's great. I just want to make sure that the element that I'm targeting is not particular to this page and nothing else. With that knowledge, we'll come back in here and we're going to use header.wp block template part. And we're just going to say padding top. And I'll just make that 2 rems. And I'm just going to change my comment to be site title and header. And we'll just kind of clean up our CSS right here. We'll go back out to the front end part of our website. And now I'm liking the initial part. So now my navigation menu looks pretty good. I have my logo and we've removed that page name and eliminated some of the space that is not necessary for our purposes.